Hi, I'm Anushka and I've spent over 200 hours inside of Claude Code. Not casually, basically properly building with it. And I realized something. Claude is either the most powerful development tool that you'll ever use or it's completely useless. There is no middle, and the difference comes down to one thing: whether you treat it like a chatbot or like an operating system. Because if you're just typing random prompts and hoping it works, you're doing it so wrong. So in this video, I'm going to show you the exact system that I use to build faster than most other people, the MCP stack that actually matters, how to run parallel workflows with sub-agents, and the mindset shift that changes every single thing. Basically, it's everything that I've learned in about 10 to 12 minutes. Okay, so let's be honest. Most people use Claude like this, right? They'd open up something, then type in build me this feature, and then get frustrated when the output is super messy. But here's the truth: Claude is really not that bad. Your instructions are really bad though. AI doesn't just figure things out, it executes. That's what Claude does today. So if your thinking is unclear, output will be garbage. That's how it works if your thinking is unclear. That's why the best Claude users aren't just good at coding, they're good at breaking problems down clearly. And that's something that's going to help you in life also. So once you fix that, everything else starts working super well. The first system you need is memory. So when I started, I kept on repeating the tech stack, the file structure, coding preferences, API formats, every single session. And Claude is worse than ChatGPT when it comes to memory. They haven't figured that out yet. Huge waste of time. But when I started using Claude memory properly, then it all changed. You can press the hash command and store instructions like always use TypeScript with certain rules, follow this particular folder structure, for like naming folders and stuff, use this error handling pattern correctly. You can also set down project level memory or global memory. Now every session starts getting aligned. And yes, that's a little problematic because unlike GPT, it can't really derive from conversations. So it's more project specific. But there are certain memory rules that you can just clearly establish throughout. One good way to do this is go to memory and then write no M dashes, because I think we're all so done with M dashes. So you don't have to re-explain anymore. And by the way, this gets saved in a file. That's super important. So your AI brain is editable. Next is the command system, which basically changes everything. This is where you stop being a user and start being a builder. I noticed that I was repeating the same prompts, right? Create API endpoints with validation, fix lint errors, refactor this, refactor that, add logging plus error handling. So I turned them into commands. What this does is basically, instead of me repeating myself and repeating the framework again and again, it remembers this particular command and this is what it means. So you create a /commands folder, and inside it, each file, there's one reusable prompt, right, written in Markdown. So for example, if you write create -endpoint.md, it describes exactly how the endpoint should be built. So now instead of prompting, you can just run the command and you'll be good to go. There is a slightly advanced level to this. Most people don't do this, but this is a bit of a hack. Make the commands dynamic, or arguments. So instead of like saying something like create endpoint, you do something like create endpoint for user auth with JWT. It's the same command, but it's a different use case, right? So you create frameworks for that and make it as specific as possible. Why this matters is that you don't rely on memory anymore. You're building repeatable systems, and like I said, Claude memory isn't that great to begin with. So if you build repeatable systems, then over time this just becomes an internal framework. The fourth section is super important, and this is MCP servers. This is where 90% of the people fall behind. Claude alone is limited, right? MCP turns it into a very clear real system. So MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. And it's a way for Claude to connect to external tools like API connections, etc. So instead of just generating code, it can access live data, it can interact with systems, it can execute real actions. And the context is basically non-negotiable. When it comes to AI, the most problematic issue is the outdated documentation, because it's trained on that, right? So the solution is context 7. You just say use context 7. Now Claude pulls out the latest documents, corrects syntax, updated APIs. No more copy pasting from Google. It alone saves so many hours. This is an MCP that you can definitely use. Another one is the Superbase MCP, which is extremely powerful. Claude can query your database, create tables, run migrations, debug queries. So instead of writing, thinking, and then writing SQL and then testing, you say something like create tables for this particular feature, and this just executes. So you don't really have to do the back end work of it all. It's super easy to connect, and a lot of these tools also have MCPs. Like Beehive just launched their new MCP. I think it's the first email newsletter that has an MCP integration with Claude. So that's definitely worth checking out. Browser MCP, which is like Playwright and Chrome Dev tools. This is for front end. It can open your app, inspect the UI, read console logs, and debug errors. So you're basically giving AI eyes, right? It can basically see what is going on right in front and screenshot and then debug. The Stripe MCP, which is the payments bit. If you're building anything real, then Claude can handle the payment flows, update billing logic, debug webhooks. This is also slightly recent, and you can trust it with your financial data because it's officially integrated with Stripe. So no more guessing payment logic or anything like that. It can also give you very, very cool insights on who's buying what and where is the money coming from, where you should be spending most, etc. There's the Vercel or deployment MCP, which can check deployment configurations, fix any issues that you have, adjust project settings, stuff like that. I'm not sure whether Netlify has one, but Vercel definitely does. So what this does is Claude stops being like a coding assistant and it becomes a system operator, which is extremely important because then you're not treating it like a chatbot anymore. So yeah, that's it. The fifth section is about sub agents and parallel execution, which is extremely important. Oh my god, can it be slow sometimes? This is where speed explodes. So before, you used to write code, you used to test, then you used to debug, and then document all in sequence, right? You had to wait hours and hours and days sometimes for limits to reveal themselves, and you just like waiting for the task to get done. But here you can run multiple agents at once parallelly, where they're doing multiple things. So what are sub-agents basically? They're separate Claude instances with their own context, their own task, and their own tools. They work independently and report back. Think of them as like employees, right? Initially, you just had one and they would probably finish a particular task and say, for example, you were supposed to create a proposal. So you would create a proposal, then maybe put it live, and then create an email out of that proposal. But here you can create an email agent, a proposal generator agent, and they can work simultaneously. So both are ready, within 5 minutes. The biggest mistake people make is that they assign roles though. So you don't necessarily have to assign like a front-end development role or something like that. It doesn't really work. What you should do is task-based agents instead of role-based. So for example, you use something like the code cleaner agent, which optimizes and refactors code, then that's the task it does. If you say it's a docs agent or a proposal generator agent, then it writes the proposal or documentation based on how you prompt it and your context and your data and your templates. If it's a UI reviewer agent, then it looks at UX via the browser MCP. If it's a research agent, then it gathers info. So instead of saying and prompting it and assigning it roles, you give it certain tasks and that's what it does. This works because the main context remains clean and it improves the output quality so much, and it enables parallel work because you're not kind of shuffling between different things altogether, but they're still happening at parallel environments, and you don't necessarily have to wait for one task to finish to start the next. So how do you create something like this? You go to /agents, you create new, describe the task clearly, assign your tools, and then save. And then you can call it with an @ The sixth thing, and a very cool thing, is instant setup of plugins, which is something that all the beginners love. Oh my god, I remember how much I started loving it when I was a non-technical developer of Claude Code, and plugins just saved my life. So setting this whole thing up is extremely painful. Plugins can solve that. You can install full workflows, copy setups, reuse systems. So basically you can clone someone else's Claude brain. And I'll share some stuff with you, which are very cool plugins that you can use. I use them all the time. You can copy some of mine as well. This is all available in a community that's called 0 to AI. We go from 0 to AI in 30 days or so, and there's about 1.1k members already in this, and every day there's a 15-minute video on say setting up Claude Code. This is what you can do with it. There's multiple different things here, and then we're going to just keep on adding. There's a lot of accountability, there's a lot of hiring in for hire posts, there's a lot of co-founder matching, so all that's happening. Definitely something to check out. Okay, now section 7, the real skills. This is everything. This, if nothing else, just listen to this. None of this works if you do not have the clarity of thought. Because if you cannot explain the task clearly in plain English, you cannot execute it with Claude. Because Claude is so not great with basic prompting and understanding that. The decomposition is, say for example, like if you say something like build dashboard, that's not a great thing. What you should do is say create layout, fetch data, render components, handle errors. So that's like 4 different subtasks that you break down into this particular task. And if you want to do something like this, then in the community itself we have prompts that you can create on a chat, and then you can just say build dashboard, and then it'll break it down according to which Claude can understand. So like reverse Claude prompting basically. It saves you so much time and so many tokens. If you want to plan before coding, use Claude to ask you questions, align first and then build, which Claude does already today. It's a little irritating sometimes, but I guess that, for the long run, it's kind of helpful. Ownership. Okay, so AI writes the code, you own the bug, security issues, performance. So you need to review every single time. Like you cannot just, deploy a website and then be like, okay, it's great. And then you realize that there's some issue, or like some things are not working. AI is not fully thorough right now. So you definitely need a human in the loop. Yeah, so this is pretty much it for this video. Claude is not magic, please remember. It's leverage. Most people waste it, but if you build systems properly, use the MCP, run parallel workflows and think clearly, then you unlock a skill which is basically magic at this point. You stop coding slower with AI, you stop making stuff slower with AI, and you become so much more faster. And you get a massive competitive advantage. So this is pretty much it. And if you want to check out more, then there's a link to the community in the bio. Thanks, guys.